Yeah, let's move on to the
That's cool.
Sorcerer.
Okay.
Okay, so the Sorcerer gets a bunch of new spells. My view was there's some good spells in here. I didn't think there were a lot of great spells. And certainly none I had issues with. So I would definitely allow this. If anything, I would have liked to have seen some spells here that aren't here. I mean, I would have loved to have seen Wall of Stone here, for example, at fifth level. They gave them nothing at fifth level. But as far as these go, I'm fine with them.
Yes. Uh, and kind of sarcastically said that Sorcerer got grease and nothing else.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't fully agree. Well, I almost agree because though if we can,
Thanks to spell versatility, that statement isn't as true.
yeah, if I can access demi-plane every other short rest or every other long rest, I would use it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I think these spells are neat. Grease is a welcome power increase.
yeah.
Nice.
Okay. Spell versatility, we already know. We both like that. Um, Though you had put in that there's certain situations where you figured it should be limited to some degree, like long setting. I assume that applies to Sorcerer as well as to Bard.
To all of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I think just to recap for anyone who hasn't seen the previous video, in my game we changed the condition from after every long rest. You can do it after every day where adventure happened, even if it's just a single encounter, or after 5 days of downtime or travel. So just so when you go from the city to the place where the adventure takes place, that the sorcerer doesn't swap out all their spells on the way.
Okay. So Font of Magic gives us some more ways we can spend our sorcery points. And yeah, the first thing is I'll mention I don't think any of these are unbalanced, and some of them I think are maybe a little bit weaker than they should. I would like to actually see them a little bit boosted. Um, but uh,
Yes.
but I don't have a problem with allowing them. So empowering reserves allows you to make an ability check on your turn. You spend 2 sorcery points to gain advantage on the check. I'm not sure. To me, that feels sorceress. Certainly if you're a wild magic sorcerer, maybe, but they already can do that. Uh, for a draconic sorcerer to be able to change their ability checks, I'm not sure how that fits with the flavor of sorcerer. I don't think it's broken, but I would have liked to have seen it something more sorcerer flavorful. But I don't have a problem with it balance wise. What about you?
So one thing that is very important to keep in mind is that whenever we get these Unearthed Arcana features, a lot of the times we only get the rules text and not the flavor text, because that is added later on.
And with the
Um,
right flavor, maybe I would need to read it.
yeah,
But
so
if it
so
spoke to me, I could be swayed here. But again,
so I'm
balance wise, I don't have a
just
problem here.
I'm just imagining a sorcerer that the sorcerer is very much about the innate and somewhat like unruly magic, right? They're very much about this innate talent and these unparalleled magic effects in a way. Now, the game doesn't quite deliver on that fantasy as much, aside from Twin Haste, but I mean, there's more sorcerer can do. But what I imagine is, imagine you're like a draconic sorcerer and you're making an intimidation check, and then you burn some of your magic to create some form of magical effect that helps you in that intimidation. Like, imagine you're a dragonborn draconic sorcerer, like a blue one, then you spend sorcery points and make lightning crackle all over your skin while you say someone that you're gonna kill them if they don't give you their lunch money.
You just got inspiration in my game. I like it when players can explain their abilities in a way that is unique and fits their concept. Um,
Yeah,
and
but I
yeah,
feel
and
like
I agree. If you play this like that, if you are as a player go, uh, this is how I'm going to make this feel magical. Then I'm way more on board with it than just and like you say, the flavor text hasn't been written in. I'm not sure how you would write the flavor text in for that. That almost needs to be a player creativity thing. As a DM, if you are a player who wants to play this, I would definitely encourage that style of play. You want to use this, fine, but make me feel that it's not just you getting advantage on a roll. I want you to make it feel magic. That's all I'd ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, you use your innate magic to create a perceptible magical effect supporting you in your attempt.
Yes. There. Done. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, I like it because it's kind of like an enhance ability, which kind of it upgrades what you're already doing.
And two
Um,
sorcery points, I think, is appropriate for the power level. Uh,
I think it's a
it's
bit
not.
expensive.
It is, but you can use it when you need it. You're not going to be using this all the time, but you got that important ability check.
Yeah, what I really
Yeah.
like about it is that it's not a perceptible spell. So when you're negotiating with the king, it's kind of not the best idea to cast enhance ability, right? Like
No.
in his
Yeah.
face,
But
right?
but we talk about that draconic
This
sorcerer again, and now you're lifting that draconic presence. That's almost imperceptible.
Yeah,
Yeah, empowering that through magic, through your ancestry.
yeah,
Yeah, again, if you can make it feel magical, it's the opposite of the hide in plain sight. Hide in plain sight, I thought needs to feel less magical. This one, I think, needs to feel magical.
yeah.
Yeah.
So one important thing to consider is when I was describing this, where you said I get inspiration, there's other tables where the answer might be you can't make lightnings on your skin, right? So, like,
Well, they're doing
people,
it. You're having fun
very
wrong,
different
people.
kinds of games,
Yeah,
right?
that's a joke,
Um,
but
but some people might be more strict about like wanting your magical abilities to be what they say in the rules and nothing more.
uh,
And so now this gives
yeah.
you a license card to use your magic for other things.
I think that as a DM, anything you can do to enhance player creativity is always good. Just to give people options to make their character feel unique. I think that's good. So yeah, no, I'd like to reward players who do that kind of thing because
As long as you're not
because they're making it.
breaking the rules.
Well, yeah, if you said the lightning is crackling around my skin, and so therefore I'm going to have resistance to lightning damage this round, or something like that, or do
Yeah.
damage to the guy next to me. Well, no, this was that's not the intent. But yeah,
Yeah.
okay, let's move on. Imbuing touch.
Okay.
Um,
Imputing touch.
I liked.
I love it.
Yeah, I liked imbuing touch. My only issue with imbuing touch, it seemed a little expensive to me, because this is something that is going to be very circumstantial. And yeah, when you need it, we talked about this. When you need it, you need it. But it's an action
Yes.
and 2 sorcery points. I'd like to see it either a bonus action or 1 sorcery point. That's what I'd like to see here.
Maybe. To be honest, I was fighting were creatures the other day,
Yeah.
and we needed a magic weapon spell, and I don't think I'd be mad about spending an action in 2 points.
If you have 2 points
Uh,
remaining.
I'm going to use a bonus action and convert a spell.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, when you need it, you need it. I agree.
yeah.
I would
think
just
the
be
pricing
inclined
is
to make
hard
it.
to different.
Okay.
And as I mentioned earlier, I think this is an overarching Wizards of the Coast vendetta to make cleric not as important to what your party does, and I like that.
Yeah. And if you're a DM and you're putting your players against a creature they cannot harm, think about that. Because I had a campaign recently where the DM just didn't consider. They just saw the challenge rating, and a bunch of were rats attacked a low-level party, and we had no escape route, and it was a TPK.
At the same time, oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It
actually ended the campaign.
Oof. At the same time, if the party attacks the gang of were-rats, then give it to them. They attack.
Yeah. It was.
This is a very important distinction. Don't drop an unavoidable immunity encounter on them, but if they choose to go to the immunity encounter, that's different.
At least consider, think about if you're going to give people immunity to, or creatures immunity to your players' attacks, think about it. That's all I say. Just think about how are they going to get out? what's going to happen? Are we going to warn them beforehand? Just think about it.
I also recommend reviewing the chase rules in the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Good idea. Sorcerer's Fortitude. So my issue here, I have, I have some issues here. Spending a sorcery point for 1d4 of temporary hit points to me seems really expensive. But then again, do I want somebody getting a ton of temporary hit points? I don't necessarily want that either. You want to have temporary hit points limited to some degree. And so what I would have liked to have seen here is maybe not have dice. Maybe you can convert sorcery points into temporary hit points, but maybe I don't know. I don't know. And then have it so that it doesn't scale. Maybe there's a limit to how much you can spend. Maybe you get, if you spend one sorcery point, you can get this many temporary hit points or something. And rather than you can spend 5 sorcery points and get that times 5. I don't know, but I can see, number one sorcery point for D4 doesn't seem like much to me. But then I can see the issue if you just increase the die type or something too. So I'm not sure. What do you think?
Okay, so first up, I'd allow this feature because it's bad. Second, I don't think this feature should exist. I do not think it's a good idea to incentivize sorcerers to trade the one thing that makes them unique from other spellcasters and turn it into the most boring stat possible.
Yeah, okay. I don't argue. I won't argue that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good idea that, like, you get temporary hit points, but then you can't do all these amazing things that set Sorcerer apart anymore.
Yeah. Okay, so that's something to think about. If you are a DM, is that what you want your sorcerers to do? If you are considering adding this, and you think that your player is going to use that, is that what you want? I'm not sure as written whether it's unbalancing or not. I don't think it is. But yeah, I would agree that it definitely changes the flavor of a sorcerer to be using sorcery points on hit points. So we're going to talk about metamagic options now. So the first metamagic option for sorcerers, elemental spell. You spend 1 sorcery point, and you can change we're talking just about elemental kinds of damage to other elemental kinds of damage. I like this one. Do you like this one?
I like this one. The only thing I would be vaguely concerned about is a 2-level Tempest Cleric.
Yeah, doing a lightning build.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to play with that to know if I'm concerned. One thing I've found with you read Tempest Cleric and you immediately think, what if I was to multi-class this? What could I do with it? I haven't found a lot of ways to abuse it. In fact, usually I find that it's probably less powerful than if you just went straight caster. So I'm not overly concerned with that. It might be an issue, but I don't think it would be a big issue. I really don't.
I'm just thinking what happens if you max damage a lightning fireball. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing. Like, you're looking at level 8 where you then throw a 28, 34, 38 points of damage fireball.
Yeah, it'd be 8 times 6, 40. Yeah. It'd be 48, right?
Well, you have the vacant 4th level spell slot, so you can use that one, and then you add your charisma modifier from the level 6 dragon sorcerer thing.
Yeah.
So I think you're at 38, and to be honest, we have to compare it what the straight sorcerer would be able to do.
Right.
And is a 38 damage fireball going to wreck my encounter more than a giant ape?
Yeah. Well, and that's just the thing. I mean, if you do Tempest Cleric, you're giving up 2 levels to do it, and that's 2 levels. That's 1 slot higher that you've given up to do it. That's a significant cost. I'm okay with you being a better blaster with lightning if you do that, because you're giving up a lot for that. That's my view on it. So I would allow this as written, and I'm glad it's there. It's the kind of thing, because we do see, like the Draconic Sorcerer, for example, everyone's kind of pushed into taking fire because that's what spells do. At least you got some options, right? And I like that. Yeah. Anything else on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Tempest Cleric multiclass does need some testing just to make sure it's not too strong. I
Yeah.
doubt it is, but it might be.
I doubt it is too. And again, I haven't actually played with the builds. That's just my gut feeling. Now,
Yeah.
Seeking Spell I thought kind of sucked. I just thought it was weak. What did you think?
Um, I'm trying to recall the last time someone had cover against the dexterity saving throw of my spell.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't. So this is interesting because with Fireball it doesn't happen because it spreads around corners. So it's not intended to be subject to cover, as far as I know.
Yeah. Well, that's debatable. Technically speaking, well, it goes around corners. Yeah, you're right. I don't think you would have cover. I don't think a fireball would
Yeah.
give you cover.
Okay.
So you could do something like, I don't know, a cone of cold. Then maybe
That's not a cover because it's a con save, right?
Oh, jeez. No, but okay. How about a lightning bolt?
Okay, so the interesting thing is, one, why are you casting Lightning Bolt? Second,
Because I'm in a hallway, and the hallway has little partitions that people are hiding behind.
then cast Sleets. Okay, anyway, so what I find really weird is that the intent that when I Lightning Bolt someone, then the second person is half cover against my Lightning Bolt? That makes the spell even worse than I'm usually playing it
Yeah.
when it comes up in my games.
I don't see why this is even here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Also, this is probably still worse than Empower spell. Like,
Oh,
even
yeah.
if they have the bonus,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
rolling more damage,
Well,
the
that's it.
spell might be better.
That's it. Even if you were, and I don't remember if I said that in the initial video or I said it in the video that I'm not going to release, where I suggest changes. But yeah, even if you have the rare situation where this would work, I'm not sure it's the best way to increase your damage. So yeah, I just don't see the point of it. Now I was thinking if you could do something cool with it, like destroy the cover, maybe then, or do damage to the cover if it's like like not a person. Maybe you could blow it away so that the archers could shoot. I don't know. But as it is, it's not broken. It's just crappy. Yeah. And so
So it
doesn't
fits
really do
right
anything.
in there with the other meta magics usually.
Yeah. Well, but I think it's the worst. I of all the players' handbook ones, I don't think any are worse than this. Which one?
Careful spell.
Careful Spell is very good. I like Careful Spell.
Are you aware that allies still take damage
Yeah.
with careful spell?
Not if I cast a hypnotic pattern.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
Does it work on hypnotic pattern? Oh yeah.
Yeah, sure
okay.
it does.
Yeah, I was thinking careful spell for damage
It
spells.
only is it only is problematic if we're looking at friendly fire where they would take half damage if they saved.
Yeah.
But there are spells where
Yeah.
you have to think about it, right? You have to think
Yeah.
about how to use it.
No, you're
Yeah.
totally right. I didn't think about the control spells
Yeah.
because what I was really thinking about is the classic sorcerer, right?
Yeah,
Sorcerer
Fireball.
supposed to be the
Fireball.
classy
Yeah.
one,
And I get
right?
it. I
And
totally
the
get
place
it.
handbook incentivizes that. So
Play an Evoker.
that is why
Yeah.
crappy in my mind.
Okay.
No, you're right. That might just. Well, the thing is, if there's a bad meta magic, I wouldn't remember it. So
Unerring Spell. This one too, I think, is underpowered. But there is a specific kind of build where I've seen where there are sorcerers who want to like focus on Chromatic Orb or Chaos Bolt. I could see why they would take this. But then in that case, give it to him for a single sorcery point.
I would say there is a very niche thing. I think it's very weak, but there is a world where this is a 10th level meta magic for some sorcerers and some campaigns. Because the contagion spell exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
And contagion can be very powerful in the right circumstances.
After the errata, I agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, before the errata, it was either broken, but
Yeah.
yeah, because there was two ways to read it. But just in case anyone isn't aware, the contagion spell has been changed with the 2018 errata, and it now poisons the target when you hit until they finish the saving throw best of 5 or whatever it is.
Which basically means they'll be poisoned for the rest of the combat. And it
Yes.
doesn't really matter if they become diseased or not, because the reason you're using it is as a debuff, and it's a non-concentration debuff, so it's a pretty good one. So yeah, I would agree. I could see adding it onto, but this is a whole meta magic slot for one spell. I'd still make it a single sorcery point. Make it good for the first level sorcerer too, and I don't think it'd be broken for one sorcery point to use it with contagion. Personally,
Yeah, it might be very cheap with but the investment for contagion is so high. So
yeah,
yeah,
with contagion you got to
not.
touch the guy, right? So you're getting in melee. My personal thing, change it to a sorcery point. That would be the thing.
I feel like for the normal user, it's kind of a trap.
Yeah.
But then again, traps exist. I would like to see some rebalancing, maybe some combining with other effects to make it comparable to twin to subtle.
Oh, that
to the good ones.
That's a I don't know how I'd do that.
One thing, for example, that I see right away, I don't know the wording of twin spell off the top of my head. Can I use another meta magic when I'm twinning a spell?
No, unless it's the only thing you can use with another meta magic off the top of my head is empower.
Right?
I'm not even sure about subtle. Let me
Wait,
check. Let me
okay,
check. Yeah, we got to check that one. But I know empower. It says specifically under the
empower definitely works.
And if subtle
doesn't, no.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So empower. That's the big draw of empower. Is although the damage isn't dramatically increased, at least you can stack it with another meta magic effect. Yeah. This one you can't do that either. No.
Yeah, I'd like to see an erring spell just do something that stands out, like reroll with advantage.
Yeah.
Maybe something like that.
Maybe. I'm not sure. I will say I think it's weak as written. So it needs something.
I think the big problem is that it wants to work with attack roll spells, and attack roll spells aren't good.
And there's not very many. There are less than people think there are. Because we're used to playing low level, and in low level we're doing a lot of cantrips. But you don't want to be using your meta magic on cantrips. It skews our views on how spells work, and when you get more into higher levels, you're going to find you're going to be making less and less attack rolls, just the way it is. Let's move on to Warlock. I think we both agree that one needs something.
There's one thing missing in the Sorcerer.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I'm looking at this Unearthed Arcana, and it's all about, hey, when you get an ASI, swap your skill proficiency. When you gain a level, swap your cantrip. When you finish a long rest,
empower or meta magic switching. Yeah,
whereas meta magic,
versatile.
I had the pleasure of playing in the Tomb of Annihilation campaign, and I took Quicken when I should have taken Subtle at level 3.
Yeah.
And so I played that character for 10 months until I was able to rectify that mistake. I obviously succumbed to the sunk cost fallacy and just multi-classed into Hexblade Warlock and went blasting instead. Yeah. But so that saved me. But it feels really bad.
Jeremy Crawford, where is versatile meta magic? Put it in. Agreed. Yeah, should be there. Warlock. Spell versatility. I think Warlocks get screwed here. I just think it's not fair that the other spellcasters can change their high-level spell slots. Warlocks can't. I really think this should include Mystic Arcanum. That's my view.
I agree it should include Mystic Arcanum, but my Warlock players would let you know that they're getting Create Homunculus, and that Homunculus splash out is so cute. We can forgive them.
Well, we're moving ahead to Warlock spells,
Well,
but
it should include the Mystic Arcana.
yeah, because if we talk about Warlock spells, that it just convinces me even more. It should include Mystic Arcana because there are spells here that are level 6 and higher that I want my Warlock to cast that I'm not going to pick because I'm not going to cast them very much. And I mentioned Magic Jar was one that I would definitely want on my Warlock, but I'm not going to be casting Magic Jar very often. It has an expensive material cost. It's not something I'm going to use every day, but I think it's good for Warlocks. If we had spell versatility affect Warlock spells, I think this Warlock spell list becomes a lot better. Now, you had an issue with Animate Dead. I assume that's the short rest mechanic. Yeah.
I personally don't have an issue with Animate Dead, but the important question again is, are we responsible adults when we're handling short rests?
Right.
And will the designers feel a need to account for the possibility of spamming short rests or not?
I would
Because
say I would say no.
if you
I would say no.
okay.
And the reason for that is you want to try to find a way to game the system. Again, your DM has control over that. The DM has some control over what counts as a short rest. You rested 8 times in a row, or did you rest once? Right? And ultimately the DM has the option of, even without looking at mechanics, of saying, stop being a jerk, right? I think that's an option. And Animate Dead, you want to create an army of undead, you can do it. Make a necromancer. It can already be done. So yeah, I don't
Not at that level.
Okay, but I don't think this is going to be. I think Animate Dead is a good addition here. I think it certainly fits the theme of a warlock to be able to do that kind of thing. Personally, I mean,
it will definitely improve my games. I will say that I have sometimes allowed the short rest spam in some situations. What was happening? So sometimes, especially the Great Old One Warlocks have spells that really lend themselves to spamming, but I don't feel like it's in a hurtful way. So they get sending.
Right.
Which that's reasonable. Like, you're a Great Old One Warlock. Am I gonna let you cast 32 sendings in a downtime day? Why not?
Yeah, sure. And
Am I
even with Animate
gonna?
Dead, I'll say, if I'm a DM and it's going to be fun and funny to have the warlock spam Animate Dead and create an army of undead and do something, I'm gonna think about it at the time and go, is this? I'm not necessarily against it. It really depends on the situation.
Yeah, I think just make sure everyone at the table is a responsible adult, and
Yeah,
you're gonna be fine with that.
yeah,
Yeah. Also, it's just not fun to have a. Well, it might be. It changes the game certainly. Maybe people enjoy playing a horde of zombies instead of their characters. Who knows?
Well, I think it can be one of those. Certainly with a necromancer, it can be one of those once in a time things to deal with a unique challenge in a campaign in an interesting way that is makes you feel like that necromancer from fantasy that has
like
right
the DM moment of, you get to do this once.
and yeah, so as a DM, give it to them, write it in that moment where they can do it, that village they want to just decimate, and they build their army of undead, and you have Night of the Living Dead. I think it could be fun. So I would definitely allow it. But I get what you're saying. A short rest mechanic. At least think about it. There certainly changes how Animate Dead works, because Animate Dead, the creatures last for a certain amount of time, and it's clearly designed with the intent that you can cast a spell once per spell slot per day, right? And so if you are going to change that, just be aware that there are mechanics there to consider. But I do think it could be a fun mechanic, so I would definitely go for it.
Yeah.
Now, with what I would like to do is jump ahead to the Pact Boon, Pact of the Talisman, because I think it's important to talk about that before we talk about invocations.
I would like to talk about the 5th level spells.
Oh yeah, the more spells. So what do we got? We got Mislead, Modify Memory, Planar Binding, and Teleportation Circle. Planar Binding and Teleportation. Well, Planar Binding for sure should be there, because warlocks are summoners. That's one of the things they are good at. And it's
though you don't,
weird. Not
yeah, though you don't get a way to actually. You also get Magic Circle, I think.
Oh, that's a good question.
But
Yeah.
I'm checking the Magic Circle on the side. So the big thing is, I feel like Warlock really suffers from not having amazing 5th level spells. They do get
the
Magic
Warlock
Circle.
does get magic. Yeah. Now there are not a lot of, in my opinion. I mean, these are good spells. These aren't bad spells. They are circumstantial, all of them.
True.
Yeah. So if you are stuck with no one's spells, I'm not sure those make a huge difference. But they don't. It doesn't hurt having them in there. I mean, Teleportation Circle, something you can use, especially if you have spell versatility. It'll come up. Modify Memory will come up. But I'm not sure that fixes the issue you just mentioned.
Yeah. Now, there's the problem that not many great 5th level spells exist within the game. And the ones that are great,
are really
I'm
great.
not sure if you want. Yeah. Like, should the Warlock be able to cast Wall of Force?
Or even Bigby's Hand, right?
Bigby's Hand is like the only one I think that's okay.
Yeah. Bigby's Hand is a big boost over anything they've got. There's no question about that. And it's, I don't know. You would have to think about that. But as it's written, there's nothing here I'm concerned about.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like this.
Okay. So now I want to move ahead. I think we need to talk about Pact of the Talisman before we talk about invocations.
Yes.
So Pact of the Talisman is the new pact. So you can normally just select Blade, Tome, or Chain, and there's none of the source books give you new options that I've seen. So this is kind of a big deal to give finally a new option to warlocks. And the idea here is you create a talisman and you can keep it for yourself. You can give it to somebody else. You can trade it around as you want. Whenever you make a skill roll that you aren't proficient in, you get a D4. So this is definitely unique. This is nothing that treads on any of the other packs there are. I wonder how effective a D4 on a skill check that you're not proficient in is compared to the other boons. So if I have any concerns, I certainly have no concerns about allowing this. I wonder if a D4 is going to feel underwhelming. It would be my only concern.
Okay, so I think there's two things to consider. One is the D4 on things you're not proficient in is kind of weird because
and keep in mind
when you have a D&D party,
this isn't like Jack of all trades. This isn't all Jack of all trades either. This is only skills.
Yeah. So the question is, how often is no one proficient? How often do players attempt a check they're not proficient in?
I would say it generally comes up when you make a group check, like a stealth roll.
That's a good point. I'm not sure how many people use the rule.
I don't know.
In that way.
We use it, my group. If we want to sneak as a group, we remind the DM about group checks. But yeah, I don't think it comes up a lot, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question 2 is a rules question. When the wearer makes an ability check with a skill in which they lack proficiency, is a bard with Jack of all trades lacking proficiency in skills they are not proficient in?
The designers have answered this. It also comes up with the champion.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a similar ability, but it only affects certain ability checks. And according to the designers, I don't have the sage advice right in front of me, but according to the
Hmm.
designers, you are considered proficient if you are adding half your proficiency bonus. So a
Okay.
bard gets nothing if you give this to them.
Okay. Okay. I was kind of hyped for the bard being better at everything than anyone else,
Yeah.
but okay. Okay. So that was the biggest problem I saw.
Okay.
So um, it might be a bit underwhelming. So the die might go up, but the concept in general
I like
isn't
this
that
being.
bad,
I like the idea
and
of them adding more pact boons for sure.
definitely. And keep in mind that most of the Warlock pacts, when you look at them, they aren't in themselves impressive.
Yeah. I would say definitely with Pact of the Blade, that's 100% true. And Pact of the Tome, I'd say
Pact of the
it's
Guidance King.
better. Pact of the Chain, I find, based on just if we're not looking at invocations, that it opens up, uh, is a little more impressive to me. But I really like Find Familiar, so yeah,
Yeah,
I'm all for this. I'm all for it. I question
yeah,
whether it should be a D6 instead of a D4, but maybe start with a D4 and see. If you're finding it isn't coming up, maybe the answer is an increase to the die type, or maybe it applies to more things. I'm not sure, but
maybe it should just apply to everything,
maybe maybe it should.
like just to all the skill checks
Yeah,
that you make.
yeah, or yeah, any skill check you make D4, and then I would assume then it would uh, stack with guidance.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think guidance is a cantrip, right? So
Yeah,
I don't
like
think
guidance isn't broken, so this isn't broken.
I don't see that being something that would throw your game out of whack. So yeah, if you were going to try this, number one, I would say definitely allow it. Give the warlocks another option. And yeah, I think that's a good one. Why not? If I was to pick a starting point, maybe try adding it to all skills and see how it works for you. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's move on to
So
invocations.
yeah,
So we're gonna just go through them in order here.
I would actually go through them by pact.
By pact. Okay. Are they all
So
pact? They are all pact ones, aren't they? Yeah. Okay.
not are they?
Yeah.
They might
Yeah,
be,
I think they are.
but yeah.
So
Okay.
which one would you like to go through first?
Well, we just had the talisman, so let's see what makes it special,
Okay.
right?
So the first one listed is Bond of the Talisman. I like this one a
Yeah,
lot. I like this one a lot. It is
yeah.
circumstantial. I don't think it's overly powerful, but it's cool. Uh, so you can teleport to the person wearing the talisman. They can teleport to you, and it's not limited. It's not like once a day or twice a day. You can just do it. I don't see any way that this would break things, but I do think of some creative uses that immediately sound interesting to me. And it's a 12th level ability, and I got no problem with that.
Yeah, I think it offers a fix to a pain spot that Warlock has, because Warlock really doesn't want to use their spell slots to teleport out of danger.
Right?
So
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
give your talisman to another backliner, like a wizard in your party or something,
And then if you're
then,
like a Pact of the Blade or something.
well, not only if you're Pact of the Blade, also if you're a backline Warlock, right? Because those are the
Oh, in
ones that
case they get caught in
really need the
melee.
help.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like
Uh,
someone goes up to you and you just teleport across the field to the wizard and then walk away from him. And suddenly you have two party members that keep each other safe, and the
well,
warlock doesn't need to spend a third of their spell slots anymore to do
or
so.
or even if you got give it to the barbarian, and they're in front line, and that the hit points are wearing down and down and down and down, and things are a problem, and they could get out. I mean, there's some neat uses here. I think it's cool, and I think if you're going to use these, definitely allow that one. I don't see a way that it would be broken, but I definitely see it being helpful and useful.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Just add it on top of an Arcfey warlock. So you teleport as a reaction, and then play an Eladrin, so you teleport as a bonus action. And that's not even a bad build. Like you get
Yeah.
dexterity, you get charisma. That's a solid warlock.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. We
I
we like
think
that one.
protection of the talisman in the bottom right of the next one.
Yeah. So that one, what it does is, so whoever is wearing your talisman, if they are making a saving throw they don't have proficiency in, they get a D4. Uh, and I certainly don't think it's broken. I don't know if it's powerful enough, to be honest. But
Hmm.
when you're adding to saving throws, I tend to be of a conservative mind. So I'd be inclined to start with the D4 and see if it's enough. But that's my view.
I like the concept. And you already said the 12th level one wants you to put it on the barbarian to get them out.
Yeah.
Another thing the barbarian really wants is a d4 on their wisdom save against dominate person.
Yeah, no kidding.
Especially at level 9, you're getting in the areas where it becomes super hard for a barbarian to be able to succeed at all.
You know what's worse than
If
a dominate person? It is so humiliating if you're playing a barbarian and you don't have fearless rage and you get hit with a fear effect. Oh God, that's so humiliating. You're raging and then it's like, oh, I'm so scared.
feels bad, man.
Oh,
That is bad.
it makes
And you
your
have unarmored movement to run away real fast.
it makes your heart cry. So yeah, I'm all for this. Again, I don't know if it's powerful enough or not, but I'm of a conservative view. I don't like to throw things in that I am concerned about. I'd be inclined to start with the D4 and see how it goes. What about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, then let's move on to the one. This is one of my favorites. Was Rebuke of the Talisman. I don't know if it's powerful, but I definitely think it's cool. So
Okay.
you can take this one at level 1. And if you or whoever's wearing your talisman is hit by an attacker, you can deal a little bit of crappy psychic damage to them. But then you can also push them 10 feet away. That part I like. I just think that's kind of cool. Pushing effects when they hit you is definitely unusual. It's usually the other way around. And so it gives you something that nobody else can do. And I like that. What about you?
Okay. So, I read this at first and thought it sucked. Because I thought what was happening is that you knock them back 10 feet. And that's really bad. Because imagine you have this like on your barbarian. He's getting hit a lot. And then you knock the enemy back 10 feet. And the enemy is like, oh, thank you for pulling me out of opportunity attack range. You're within 30 feet of when I hit them, so I can just now walk around the barbarian without taking an opportunity attack and attack the 14 AC Warlock instead. But it says up to 10 feet. So that doesn't happen, which is really nice.
Well,
so
and
now
you don't have to do it at all, right? You have to use your reaction if you want to use this.
Well, yes, but you want to use your invocation.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
yeah. But if I'm a barbarian, I don't care too much about doing charisma damage.
No, the
sorry,
Warlock is
it's the
doing-
Warlock's charisma damage, but still, it's
Yeah.
not very much. I'm using it for the 10-foot push, right? That's what I want this for, not for the damage.
Yeah, so the 10-foot
Yeah.
push might synergize very well with Polar Master, but it might also be risky by allowing backline access.
Yeah,
I think
I
the
like this for
5
casters
damage-
too. I like this for casters too. Same thing, you
keeping
know.
them a bit more safe.
Yeah, yeah, just another defense option, and a unique one.
I think you might be underrating how much damage it deals.
Well, it does equal to your charisma modifier, so I would be thinking up to 5 in a
Yeah.
round because you're getting one reaction.
Yeah. I would say you can very consistently use this almost every round.
Depending on your character, for sure. If you're a melee character, you're going to be attacked a lot.
I'm pretty sure we're giving this to allies.
Yeah.
I think if you're playing a Pact of the Talisman Warlock, I think you're an Eldritch Blast Warlock at the back.
Probably. Yeah, but I'm not sure how well that would work with Pact of the Blade. It's certainly not obvious how it would work. So we agree that this should stay as is.
You can't be Pact of the Blade because you're Pact of the Talisman.
Oh, because you're Pact of the Talisman. Duh. Well, then you're definitely not. You're definitely not. We're done. Yeah, you're an Eldritch Blaster. So we both like this as it is.
So what I really like about it is, as a warlock, in most combats you don't have a use for your reaction. There's sometimes where you will want to cast counterspell, but usually that's the only reaction you take. So the condition of the wearer of the talisman being hit by an attack is not very hard to meet. So we can proc this so often. It's just 5 damage over and over and over and over.
Yeah. Now
It's
I will
also
mention there is
30
a
range.
limitation on range here too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the 30 feet range. In my experience, the 30 feet behind your front line is good enough,
Mine too.
usually.
Mine too. Yep.
What's interesting is 30 feet is also the range that Hexblade's Curse uses. So we can up this reaction damage a little bit if we're a Hexblade Warlock and our chosen enemy is causing the reaction.
Well, that's good because I was worried that the Hexblade wasn't getting enough treats here.
Well, I think this is a problem we're going to come to with another invocation in a moment.
We can't,
But-
and you can't fix it.
Yeah.
The Hexblade has issues, and I don't think
I don't think so.
I wasn't. Well, my opinion is
I think literally all warlocks except Hexblade have issues.
okay. I have issues with the Hexblade versus other. The fact that you kind of pushed into Hexblade. How about that?
We've seen a bit
Yeah, and
with a different invocation.
I wasn't
So
expecting
what
that fix. So
Mhm.
yeah,
What I see in this invocation is you don't have a use for a reaction. This happens all the time. So this is just your charisma modifier damage every round. And that's good. And yes, it becomes a bit weaker at higher levels. But 5 damage per round is 5 damage per round.
yeah. I see what you're saying. It is not insignificant damage. It's still for me not the primary pull I like, but then again, I tend to like battlefield control more than blasting, so that might be biasing my view on it as well.
I would prefer to paralyze the target.
well, yeah, or 10 feet and knock them prone.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's move on from there. Do you want to do chain, blade, or tome next?
I think since it's on topic, let's do the one blade feature. I think there's only one.
I believe
Yeah.
you're right. Yep. Okay. So Eldritch Armor. So basically, this is another way, basically, that a Blade of the Pact Warlock can. I mean, just the insult that they can't wear armor. It addresses that to some degree.
Yes.
Yeah. So
It.
they can touch a suit of armor, and then it appears on you. I like that because it's kind of magical. And then you can wear it with proficiency. And assumably you're going to do that with like plate armor or half plate armor, depending on your strength. So yeah, I think this is essentially you need to, if you're a Pact of the Blade, you need to find a way to get armor. And there's a number of ways you can do it, but this is just another one.
I don't like this.
You don't like it. Okay, so tell me why you don't like it.
Okay. So there is a trend with Warlock, and especially Pact of the Blade Warlock, that they have to trade their invocations for fundamental class features.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day,
I will say this: if you're not used to building Pact of the Blade, be aware that at level 5 you do not have enough invocations. You just don't to cover everything you want to be able to do. Yeah, I just intersect that. Keep going.
Yeah, the good thing is you're unlikely to reach level 5, so. So, Warlock time and time again trades an invocation for something other classes get right off the gate. And then at the end of the day, they're left with fundamental class features, and then they don't get anything.
Okay. I will say though that generally speaking, if you're going to make a Pact of the Blade, if you either like if you want to go with a mostly Warlock, That's maybe not the most optimal build, but people want to do it. I want to do it once in a while because there's still some cool things you can do with invocations. I'm going to get
Is there?
armor another way. I'm not going to get armor
Yeah.
this way. I'm going to, if I am a Hexblade, of course, it's taken care of. But if for some reason I have momentary insanity, or maybe Hexblade's been nerfed in my campaign or something, then I'm dipping fighter, right? I'll dip a level of fighter, get my armor, and that's how I do it. So I
Yeah.
would never take this personally, but it does create another option for somebody who doesn't want a multi-class. So I'm not against it.
So when I first read the invocation, I thought it was for any warlock, and I was somewhat happy with it because I feel like all the warlocks in the player's handbook just
Should be
they have
proficient
the
in medium
lowest.
armor.
Yes,
Yeah, I agree. Well, I
yes,
did that in my variant. Yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
That's good. I think there's one problem with the medium armor, and that is it might not quite fit the flavor that warlock intends to meet.
The funny thing is I did an image search for warlocks for that video just to have
Okay.
some pictures, and you would be shocked how few of them aren't wearing some kind of armory that doesn't look like leather armor.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I don't think it's out of flavor.
Yeah.
I think people are picturing warlocks and they have the big shoulder metal plates and stuff like that. I see that all the time. So
Cool.
I'm not convinced it's out of flavor for the warlock.
Yeah. I'd like an unarmored defense. Just charisma and dexterity. Or, if you really want to be out of left field, charisma and intelligence.
Yeah.
Plus 10. I like that. But that is not the point. What I see is the real game, sadly. And in that game, Warlock has 15 AC and you don't get more. Um, and there is no defense for any of the subclasses. So I don't. Well, there's defense for the Pact of the Blade a bit, but then again, meh.
Yeah. Unless you do Hexblade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is the big thing. Like Hexblade is kind of the Valor Bard of Warlocks. It's not terribly exciting.
Thematically, yes. Mechanically, no.
It's not terribly exciting, but at least it gives you medium armor
Well,
proficiency.
yeah, that's true. Hexblade actually gives you quite a
A bit more.
few things beyond medium armor proficiency. There's a reason why everyone's grabbing Hexblade. It gives you the
Yeah,
charisma attack and damage. It gives you Hexblade
yeah,
Curse, which is huge even if you're not using a weapon. Uh, so it gives you a spell list that includes things like the shield spell. I do think
yeah.
you're underselling Hexblade a bit, but
No,
yeah,
I don't think I'm underselling Hexblade, but I feel like Hexblade's popularity is partly not due to Hexblade being like terribly overpowered.
it's about dipping
Because
it.
like, yeah, like even when dipping it, it's not terribly overpowered. It ends up like the builds with Hexblade end up being comparable in power and usually vastly different in what they do to straight class builds.
Okay, and
Like looking at the Paladin, for example, right?
yeah,
You get way more AC, but at the same time, and you get better saving throws. But at the same time, like a Polar Master or
well,
Great Weapon Master Paladin.
everyone gets more saving throws, not just you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which makes it less powerful in the perception.
I'm of the opinion, playing as a team player, that
Mm-hmm.
Hexblade dip in Paladin makes for a more powerful Paladin than a straight Paladin. I think by a reasonable margin. Not so much that I wouldn't allow it, but anyway, we are on an entirely different topic.
Yeah,
Eldritch Armor. I see your point that Warlock should just not have to
yeah,
pay invocations for armor. Uh, if you're playing in the player's handbook as it is, and you're playing a Pact of the Blade, and you didn't dip fighter for some strange reason, and you're not a Hexblade, I'd rather have this there than not there. Because
probably.
yeah, although there are other invocations I need to at least
I mean, you need the
you
extra
need
attack.
you need this right, like you just gotta have it, or you're dead.
And the thing is, this doesn't include a shield.
No, it does not. Now I'm not 100% sure I agree that a shield fits the theme of a warlock. So I use a two-handed weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in my experience, with 18 AC and a D8 hit die,
You're gonna go down. Yeah.
you're gonna go down.
Hard.
Yeah, like basically, as the Pact of the Blade Warlock, you're going to use your invocations, so you can even use weapons and armor, and then you're going to use your spell slots to cast Armor of Agathis, so you have like an okay amount of hit points.
It does increase
and
your
then you can
damage
attack
potential
twice
as well.
turn.
Yeah.
A bit, depending on the level of what you encounter, it might do a bit.
But I'm not going to.
But I don't feel it terribly satisfying.
I'm not going to defend non-hexblade warlocks because I agree, and I think we've said our pieces on this. So let's move on.
I'm not terribly excited.
So Pact of the Blade is done. Let's talk about Pact of the Chain.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one is Chainmaster's Fury, and it's 9th level. And as a bonus action, you can command your familiar to make one attack. Now, my point I made in the video was, generally speaking, I think that's a terrible trade.
Yeah,
I don't want my pseudo dragon attacking as a bonus action. That's not a good use of my bonus action, and I'm killing my pseudo dragon. Right? That's my view.
We must see this in context, I think.
Okay.
I think we must look at the investment of the Chainmaster.
Okay, so let's go right to that right now, and then we'll come back to Chainmaster's Fury, okay, and discuss how that changes it, because it does. You're right; it changes it significantly. So with Pact of the Chain feature, you're basically improving your familiar. This one you can take right at level 1, or at level 3, I should say, and you give your familiar flying speed or swimming speed of 40 feet. Most of your familiar choices are going to have a flying speed already. They no longer need to breathe, so they can go underwater, that kind of thing. That's very circumstantial. Their weapon attacks are considered magical for the purposes of overcoming immunity and resistance to non-magical attacks. Again, if you're not attacking with your familiar, that's useless. That's only useful if you're attacking. So let's talk about, this is the one I'm sure you're talking about. If the familiar forces a creature to make a saving throw, it uses your spell save DC. And I mentioned in the video, I think this pushes you to one choice for your familiar, and that's the sprite. Because the sprite has a ranged attack that involves a saving throw, and if they fail that saving throw, they're poisoned. And suddenly, that is really effective, because if you're not using your bonus action on anything else, having your sprite very likely poison a creature with your bonus action every round is huge. But the pseudo dragon isn't getting a lot here. The imp isn't getting a lot here. The quasit isn't getting a lot here. They have poison damage that they add to their attacks, but it's not. That doesn't make this worth it. I only think this is worth it, and I think it's really worth it if you have a sprite.
Okay. So you mentioned the sprite. And I was of the opinion that using your bonus action to poison someone, I am feeling like the Pact of the Chain needs a bit more oomph to it compared to the Pact of the Tome with the Book of Ancient Secrets, which has been powering out ritual spells since level 3, right?
Right.
And this is level 9 combo.
And never mind, the Pact of the Tome has a familiar as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I feel like the Pact of the Chain isn't giving me much over Pact of the Tome with the Book of Ancient Secrets.
I'm with you so far. Keep going.
So I was thinking that a bonus action to possibly poison, would give it some power that the Warlock desperately deserves. And then I went and opened the sprite stat block. Indeed, when you hit, it's a +6 to hit. Target makes a con save, which will be your spell save DC.
And you're probably making that attack with advantage too.
Why?
Because you're invisible.
Oh yeah, it's always invisible, not just until it attacks. That's fair. That's good. So thinking up until this point, it's fine. But did you know that if the saving throw result is 5 or lower,
Oh yeah, then you're dead.
then
Like
you fall
you're done.
unconscious until
Yeah.
you take damage?
Now that's not
Okay,
necessarily going to happen a lot, so I didn't even mention
okay.
it, but it's there.
Oh, wait. Okay, so usually the mechanic is if the save fails by 5 or more. This is if the result is 5 or lower.
Yeah.
So at least it's not that broken. Because if it would just be failing by 5 or more, that would be absolutely
Yeah,
ridiculous.
and it's one of those ones
Yeah, I
where
don't think.
they don't get a saving throw every round either. The combat's over. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
kind of similar to Conscious Celestial with the cuddle.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Um, okay, you're not gonna see a con save of 5 very
no,
often.
no, I'm not too concerned about that.
Yeah,
I'm more concerned about just I'm playing a warlock. I guess I have a sprite, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's kind of sad. Uh, I do like the concept of like getting a 1 or 2 invocation combination that makes your chain pact attack and actually do something.
What if this
Like,
instead of that it did something like give your familiar the ability to cast magic missile between short rests or something like that? Right, some that would benefit.
yeah,
That's off the top of my head, but something that would benefit every familiar.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely something that keeps the familiars even.
yeah.
Still, I don't think the bonus action with a chance to poison is broken.
I'm not. No, and I didn't say that.
Yeah,
That's not my issue. My issue is I don't want. It's like the hexblade. I don't want to be forced into hexblade. I don't want to be forced into a sprite. If you're going to make familiars better, great. Make them all better.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is a know your players. Because if a player really loves Chain Pact and they just want it a bit better, then I'd allow this from the Unearthed Arcana, right? And then they just use the sprite.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
talk with the player if they
Maybe
want
the
to use
thing
it.
is if a player wants to use a different familiar than a sprite, give them something, right? Just
But
you
to be
know,
honest, just reflavor the ranged attack with this effect.
yeah. Um,
Just it can make a spell attack using your spellcasting ability, and then have the chance for a poison condition.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. If it goes through your familiar, and then regardless of so that because that would make sense because the other imps or the other imps, the other familiars, they do have poison. It just is delivered in a different way and does different things, but it would still fit with the flavor of a quasit to deliver a poison condition. So it just needs to be in a way that is. I don't think like boosting one thing and not the others, I don't think is giving options. I think it's taking options away
Mm,
from an optimizer.
in a way, yeah.
Uh,
But
well,
but I
well,
think
well, well.
I like.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. You're active on Twitter. You're active online. I'm sure you've seen lots of builds since the Hexblade came out. How many warlocks? What percentage of warlocks do you see that are Hexblades?
A lot.
Me too. That's my issue. I
So
don't think that's
the
necessarily a good
problem
thing
is
because
I feel like that sample is skewed
oh
because all
yeah.
the other warlocks die. And I wish that was a joke. It's funny, but
Well, but I think you get at it here is the solution to warlocks being weak isn't create one subclass that isn't, and the solution
yeah,
to familiars being weak is not making one familiar that isn't for the same reason, in my
that's
opinion.
fair. But
Yeah.
on the other side, people are having fun playing Hexblade Warlock.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
So I don't
but
think
a
it's
lot of
bad.
them wish they could be a different kind of warlock. I know this.
Yeah.
A lot of them wish because they don't like the flavor of the Hexblade warlock, but they feel pressured, right?
I've been
Yeah.
trying to make Arcfey work desperately,
Yeah.
and it's not working.
But yeah, I agree that if you want to play a sprite chain packed warlock, and you give them bonus action poison. I think that's good. I don't think it's broken good, but I do think it's good. I think we agree on that, right?
I think there's kind of a problem that we talked about when we were talking about the bard, and that is saying, well, making Chain Pact strong on the basis of poison makes it very inconsistent depending on the campaign the player ends up in.
Yeah, because poison is one of those things that a lot of things are immune to. And if you're playing in an undead heavy campaign, you may have it that the minority of things you fight can even be affected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it's quite reasonable that you get all the way up to level 20 and you hardly encounter anything that is poison immune or resistant.
Yeah. And
There's
that's a bigger issue than just this here. That poison is a problematic kind of damage, and it's a design. It's a big fix, right? Like we're not going to fix that with UA.
No. I mean, eventually, but it's really weird. But it also makes thematic sense in a way. Poison is the damage of mortals. It's beyond beings of the outer planes, right?
Some way around the immunity or something. I don't know. But we're not going to. Let's not even go there.
That is. Let's instead talk about Eldritch Mind.
Yes. So let's move to Pact of the Tome, and the first one they get is Eldritch Mind. This is available right away. No level prerequisite, and basically it gives you advantage on Constitution saving throws to maintain your concentration. And of course, Warlocks will be concentrating probably most of the time, whether you're using Hex or Summoning or any of the other spells they have. So many of them require concentration. I would expect you are concentrating. Now, one option is you could take a feat, but as you mentioned, not every campaign has feats. So this would give you another way to get that concentration advantage. I think advantage on concentration is almost required for a casting heavy character. So I'm all for this.
I really like it for a game without feats. In the sense that Warlock is getting something.
Yeah.
On the other side, it is another instance of Warlock wouldn't even need this if they had the armor class of a cleric in a featless game.
Well,
right.
Then again, I want this on my cleric too.
You're not getting it in a featless game, right?
No, I know, and I'd be jealous of it. So although I agree that the best way to avoid a concentration save is to not take the damage in the first place.
Yeah.
I've said that so many times, I don't even have to think about it anymore. It's like a recording, but you still want it. You still want that advantage on Constitution saves.
Yes. Yeah. It's also very important that I did the math on it a while. I didn't do the math on it. I simulated it because I'm bad at math sometimes. So I just wrote a program that tries it out. I compared moderately armored to Warcaster on Warlocks for the purpose of trying to keep concentration. And turns out Warcaster is better. Assuming you don't die because of not having
for the purposes of maintaining concentration. Moderately armored, of course, is protecting your hit points too, right? So
it's protecting my hit points. But if I'm not concentrating on anything, what are my hit points worth?
Yeah.
But yeah, so the not getting hit isn't necessarily the biggest part to avoiding losing concentration.
Well, again, I think if we're just talking about the saving throw, we're not looking at the big picture. Because you also lose concentration if you fall to 0 hit points.
Yeah.
You also lose concentration if you are forced into casting a spell that is going to protect you from dying because you've taken a lot of damage. I can't get into all of it right here, but I think there's more to it than just concentration saves. I think that oversimplifies the mechanic.
So in a game without feats, we have another example of a Warlock paying for a basic class feature. It's okay. It's a neat basic class feature. In a game with feats, I will not take this invocation for long. Because I don't want to die, So I'm gonna get some form of medium armor plus shield. And I think warlocks, out of all the classes, are the most likely to get a certain magic item. The Rod of the Pact Keeper. I feel like this happens very often for warlocks. Or some sort of arcane focus to hold.
I think if
And
you
at
have
that point,
if you have a good DM, yes. I have seen lots of campaigns where that doesn't come up, but
okay,
yeah.
But I feel like you often get some kind of magic item that you want to be holding in your other hand.
Yes. And then you want
And at that point,
Warcaster for that.
You must have Warcaster so you can cast Counterspell.
Yeah. And that's true. And you don't want this in addition to Warcaster because it's just redundant. It's useless if you have Warcaster.
Yeah.
But again, like you say, you could take it and then trade it out, right? Assuming
that's the big part.
Assuming you're not picking up Warcaster as a variant human, you might want this early on. So anyway, now, I don't think it's the best way to get it either, but I like that there's another option.
Mm-hmm. Design-wise, I don't love that it's there, because as I mentioned, I don't like them having to pay for basic class features, and I'd rather see them get something super unique, which is like, this is why I play Warlock. I don't play Warlock to have advantage in concentration saves.
Yeah.
Right.
And another thing, now that you mentioned it before, for something else, why is this a Pact of the Tome feature? Why wouldn't this just be...
Because Pact of the Tome is the best pact.
Yeah, why wouldn't you just make this a general invocation? I don't see why this fits Tome more than it fits, Talisman. But anyway, I think we can move on.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So talking about invocations that make me think, this is why I play Warlock.
Far Scribe.
Far Scribe is one of them.
For sure. Yeah, just like this one reminds me of Bond of the Talisman in the flavor. That this is the kind of thing that is going to make the Warlock feel like no other caster. And I love things that make classes feel unique. And this one does. So basically, it's you use your Book of Shadows, so it fits with Pact of the Tome. It definitely is something that it makes sense for it to be a Pact of the Tome feature. And you can do a number of names equal to your charisma modifier, and then you have unlimited sending between everyone in the book. Basically, you can send not between each other, just between you and them. And sending, of course, is a spell that is effective, but it's not. It's circumstantial. It's nothing that is ever going to break your game. So being able to give it in that kind of way, I think is really cool. And you can change the people in your book as well. So you're going on a mission for the local lord. You have them write their name in your book, or you write their name in the book, and now you have that communication with them unlimited. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think this is a almost campaign-defining spell or invocation. Well, you can keep casting it over and over. Yeah. This very much changes as a DM how you prepare the game.
Oh, because sometimes the challenge is getting messages to somebody far away. It's like teleport that way. In that, certain challenges are no longer going to be challenges. Something you should maybe keep in mind.
At least it's predictable in the sense that as a DM you know who's in the book, so you only need to prepare those people. It's not quite like teleport where you can just do anything.
Yeah. What I mean is that certain challenges we set can be circumvented. By powers. Yes. And teleport is one of those. Far Scribe is one of those. Yeah.
Yes. So I absolutely love this invocation.
Yeah, I really like it too, and I would totally allow it. So let's get into Gift of the Protectors, because this one I was hesitant about, although I like the idea of it. So what you're doing is, again, you're writing a bunch of names in your book, and then if any one of them falls to 0 hit points on any given day, then it's essentially a death ward. They'll fall to 1 hit point instead. Now, once it's used, it's not usable for any of those other creatures. But assuming you don't know which one is going to go to 0 hit points, it's definitely better than having death ward every day. I don't know if that makes sense for 9th level or not. I would be inclined to have it be one name on the book, but what is your opinion?
Okay. So a couple of things. It doesn't quite work like Death Ward. It works like Relentless Endurance. A powered kill is still gonna kill someone.
That's true. An instant death effect, it doesn't stop that. Yeah.
Yes. So now many of the instant death effects have been errated, like the Disintegrate, that if they leave the target at 1 hit point, it will survive. So you do survive a Disintegrate with this. There is one very important caveat here, and that is it's automatically triggered the first time someone falls to 0.
Yeah, that would be the
rather than
that,
giving you the choice on when to use it.
That would be the same as Death Ward. I mean, you go to 0 and it takes effect, right? You don't choose.
Does it?
I believe so. If I remember correctly, I don't have it in front of me.
Touch a creature. First time target would drop to 0 as a result. Okay, yeah. So it's the same as Death Ward in that sense.
And I do think that is... You made an important point that Death Ward has an additional ride-on. But usually the use of Death Ward is about that. That's why I immediately thought of Death Ward. It's about that not falling to 0 hit points.
But sometimes you might know that you have a tough encounter coming up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you will want to circumvent a specific thing. Like, you know the cast says Disintegrate. And you can make some predictions. And so then then the fighter just randomly goes down to the minions, that might very much screw things up a bit compared to Death Ward. I'm not sure if it's that much more powerful.
I will say for sure that this isn't as powerful as casting Death Ward on everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not. Because, it only works once. But it is more powerful than casting Death Ward on one, because you don't necessarily know who is going to be falling to that 0 hit points.
Yeah. I feel like it depends a lot on the situation.
Yeah.
I feel like it depends a lot on the situation, because sometimes you might want to ward specific people, and sometimes you might just want to ward anyone just in case.
Yeah, I agree.
And so...
is the latter of those, is it too much? And I don't know. I'm hesitant about that.
Yeah, so personally I feel like it's not going to make a big difference. Especially, I don't think that Death Ward is often very powerful.
I would think a lot of people would disagree. It's one of those spells
Death Ward is
a lot of people are big on.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
I think Death Ward is sometimes really powerful. Yeah. Death Ward is not very powerful when you're just fighting, I don't know, giants and orcs. Because you're just going to go down to the next attack.
Well, if you're facing a ton of attacks, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like Death Ward is situational, depending on the enemies you're fighting.
Oh, for sure. It's always been situational. Yeah.
Yes. And I feel like freedom of movement is similar to that.
Even more so.
Right? It's absolutely devastating in the right combats.
Yeah.
And we get freedom of movement at 7th level in an invocation. So I think having this kind of spread out Death Ward, I don't think it's going to break your game, because I don't think that a such broad application of a potential Death Ward will oftentimes have the same impact as when you think of, I cast Death Ward on someone deliberately. The difference between having Death Ward all the time and casting Death Ward when you really need it, there's the times you cast Death Ward is like 95% of the times you use it.
Well,
right?
let's look at you mentioned freedom of movement.
Yes.
So how many people can you target with the invocation?
You can target one person.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
But
in fact,
you're not getting 5 Death Wards.
In fact, you can only target yourself. So it's even more It's more restrictive than that.
I forgot about that.
So being able to, even if it was one person in your book, but you could choose who that person was. You could change who it was. I think this adds flexibility that one didn't have. And I think that in
It's
itself
true.
would be enough. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm just not sure about it. It's like I don't feel like the spell is usually that powerful, and then adding the that you don't 100% control when it happens on whom. Like you can delete people from the book to restrict it more, but then in the end of the day, you're just casting a death ward, which I don't think is broken by any means
Okay.
for a ninth level invocation. What I do want to question is we're giving someone a death ward mechanic via an invocation. Why is it not given to the pact that is about protecting an ally? Why is this not a bond of the talisman?
Yeah.
Not a pact of the talisman invocation.
Well, that's a good question. That is a good
Just
question.
whoever has your talisman has a death ward effect once a day.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? That would be balanced, in my opinion. Again, death ward once a day. I think that's just
Yeah.
fine.
I don't
Yeah.
think allowing it to proc on multiple people makes a big difference.
Okay.
Because
I think
usually when I down
think it does.
I down one of them.
I think it does. But we may just have to agree to disagree. I
Yeah.
don't think it's a massive difference. And I'm hesitant on that one. I'm not.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of those ones where I'm like, oh my god.
No.
I want to move on, and we're almost done. We're winding up here. Let's talk about the wizard. So the wizard got not a lot of stuff, so this shouldn't be too hard to go through. First, they got cantrip versatility. I think this is really good for wizards. I don't have a problem with doing it because I think you should be able to change your cantrips. I've always thought that. You can change your spells. You can't change your cantrips. You should be able to. But I think wizards can benefit from this for sure. So I like it. What do you think?
Yeah, cantrip versatility is just nice, especially because there's a couple of cantrips on the wizard spell list that are very popular with inexperienced players.
Yeah.
That then might notice that those cantrips don't quite serve the way they want to.
Yeah, especially somebody who took a bunch of attack cantrips, right? And then they go, oh.
Or 2 fire damage cantrips,
Yeah.
or something like that, right?
Yeah. I don't know if there are 2 fire damage cantrips. There are definitely.
Oh yeah, that's true.
There are 2 necrotic damage cantrips. Anyway, but yeah, we should definitely allow that. Wizard spells, they don't get a lot of spells. There's only 4. One thing I will note is that we're getting a couple divinations, and we're getting a couple rituals. So I think if you're playing a diviner, you definitely want to have access to the divinations. So I'm all for giving you access to divinations. Enhanceability is one of those ones that just seemed weird it wasn't on the wizard spell list, but so I don't have an issue adding it. And speak with dead. If you're a necromancer, how is it that you can't speak with dead? So none of these I have an issue with. How about you?
I definitely like having all of them. I mentioned earlier that I think that augury and divination are absolutely massive rituals, in my opinion.
Should a diviner be able to cast them?
Yes. But I feel like they're so strong that 8th level as a wizard is a very weird level. Because you're taking your increase to intelligence, and then you're picking 2 spells. And you already took the 2 good 4th level spells. You have Dimensional and Polymorph.
Yeah, and you only have...
you only have 2 slots.
Yeah, and I'll mention too, like I did a lot of wizard builds in the past couple months, and one thing I would definitely take advantage of are more rituals, especially rituals that aren't first level, because you only have so many preparations, and you only have so many spell slots. So when you can take spells that aren't going to fill your preparations or your spell slots, we do need to consider that there is a power gain there. That, I mean, honestly, wizards don't need any power gain at all. So you do need to consider that.
Yeah. I would consider that basically any wizard at 8th level is probably looking to pick up those 2 divinations.
I would have to do some more builds to know that for sure, but that might be the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like those 2 spell picks are pretty dead, usually. So I feel like they're very free like this. And Augury you might even pick up earlier.
Well, yeah, it would be
There's
available.
there's a dead spot at level 4, I think.
Uh,
Level 4 you often pick a ritual.
same thing. And I usually
Um,
pick a first level ritual at that point.
yeah, you end up like taking floating disc or something because that's just the only rituals that are remaining. You like sometimes there's a skyrite in your spellbook.
There's a lot of good first level wizard rituals, so I usually don't have problems finding a good one. I mean, because there's Find Familiar, Detect Magic, Comprehend Languages, Alarm, Unseen Servant. There's lots of good first level rituals. You're not going to be stuck taking Tensor's floating disc, but sometimes I might want Tensor's floating disc depending. But Augury definitely gives you another option.
I like all of these spells on the wizard spell list. I think they fit. The Speak with Dead also fits, and again, we have this thing that I brought up earlier, that all of these are cleric spells that are very clericy. Usually not many others could cast those, and now the wizard can. So again, we're having a bit less of the cleric having a monopoly on things, creating this environment where there might be peer pressure to have a cleric in the party.
And I'm not too concerned about the things you've mentioned, other things getting access to, because the cleric, what they're good at is doing mass effect damage. They're really good at that, and we're not. If we don't give Spirit Guardians to Paladins, we're not treading on that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm happy with these spells. I think what would be neat after a short break is going over the document again and seeing where your opinions might have changed and where you think this can be in a game without a big problem.
Okay. Hey everyone, just to finish up, so I want to thank Stefan for his time today. It was a good conversation, and we had a conversation right at the end where he had asked me to kind of go through what I would allow as written from the Unearthed Arcana after our discussion. This was based on his belief that I had said in the initial video that I wouldn't allow most of it, and that wasn't true. I probably would allow most of it if I was going to allow any of it. So what I think would be more productive is for me to discuss maybe how my positions have changed on some of these since we've had our discussion. And when it comes to proficiency versatility, I would allow it, and that hasn't changed from our conversation. Same thing with the barbarian abilities. I had mentioned my issues with survival instincts. I remain with those issues, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't allow it. I don't think it's unbalanced. I don't think replacing danger sense for survival instincts isn't a fair trade. I think it's a pretty straight up trade, and I would allow it if somebody wanted it. Now, when it comes to the Bard spells, I still have some concerns. I probably have less concerns than I did. When we're talking about things like aid, that it is a good point that when you help the entire party, is that a problem in the game? And now that I think about it more, probably not. Mirror image is still an issue for me. I'm not sure how it would affect the balance of bards. I think it would be a reasonably big power boost for them, in my opinion. And so I am still hesitant on mirror image, but most of these other spells I'd be okay with. I find Prismatic Wall a little strange, and by the time we're casting 9th level spells, I'm not really worried about game balance anymore. Magical Inspiration, I'm still not a fan of. Spell versatility, my opinion on spell versatility has actually changed as well, but it changed in the other direction. I thought spell versatility was fine. Stefan mentioned in certain campaigns it could be an issue. We could be talking about complete change out of somebody's known spells just because there's significant amounts of travel time or downtime. And that's something I hadn't thought of when I first read this, and I do think that could be an issue. So I'm not sure what the solution is he had recommended that he had instituted in his campaign some limitations on downtime or travel time. I'm not sure how that would look in the final version of this, so we'll have to see what happens there. But I have reservations here that I didn't have before. With the Cleric, I had already been fine with cantrip versatility. I'd already been fine with the Cleric spell list. I said I didn't like Power Word Healed. I still don't like it. I don't have a problem with it being on this list, though. Now, with Harness Divine Power, my opinion did change on this one. We came in on this pretty much on opposite ends. He thought it was fine. I thought it was a problem. What I would say is I'm kind of in the middle now. I agree that if you can't use your Channel Divinity for something useful, that sucks. So I am all for giving Channel Divinity some kind of ability where you can use it reliably and effectively. I don't think it should be a spell slot. I think that's too versatile. That is my opinion on that, and that remains my opinion on that. But I would like to see something for Channel Divinity. We talked about some possible solutions in our conversation, and I think there might be a solution in there, or something else. But I have come around to believe that Channel Divinity, yeah, there's certain kinds of cleric subclasses that could use something for Channel Divinity other than what they're given. And I would be open to that for sure. As written, I still have an issue with it. Blessed Strikes, my issues with it remain unchanged. And I think Stefan agreed there were some issues here as well. With Druid, the cantrip versatility, I'm totally fine with the Druid spells. I think there's some interesting spells on here, and I have no issues with any of them. Now, Wild Companion, my issues with it remain unchanged, and that is, I do think that Moon Druids at second level don't need any new treats. But I do think that, yeah, if we didn't allow it for Moon Druids, I think it's just fine. Or if we gave it to Moon Druids at a higher level. So I'm not sure my opinion on that has changed, except that I would like to see other kinds of Druids other than Moon Druids be able to access it at second level. With a fighter, Superior Technique, if I was going to allow this stuff and somebody wanted to try this, I would allow it. I don't think it's going to be a balance issue, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm maybe less hesitant on it the more I think about it. But I'm not 100% sure on that one. I think it might actually be on the weak side. And if it is on the weak side, if you allow it, you might actually end up with a player who's disappointed with it. And that's not good either. So I'm not sure. I guess we'll see with the playtest. Maneuver versatility, I was all for, and I remain so. With the maneuver options, I did change my opinions on some of these. When it comes to ambush, I noted that it might be really good as a dip for another class. But yeah, Stefan mentions, are those dips really a concern? And no, I don't think from a balance point they are a concern, so I would allow it. And most of these other ones I would have allowed, except for Restraining Strike. I've got a problem with it. I still have a problem with it. So my opinion on Restraining Strike actually didn't change at all. But my opinion on Silver Tongue and Studious Eye did. Stefan pointed out that Battle Masters are supposed to be studious. They're supposed to be worldly. He pointed out some flavor text in the subclass that I had forgotten about. And as soon as he did, I realized that I was wrong on these. So I would definitely allow both of those. Snipe, I was already all for. With the Monk, as before, I am convinced the Monk didn't get enough treats here, but Monk weapons, yes, I would allow it. I would love to see monks that aren't dwarves or aren't elves get something, and I don't think they get much here, but I would still allow it if somebody was going to play a dwarf monk and they wanted to use a battle hammer. I have no issue with that. Key Fueled Strike, of course, I would allow. The key features, I would allow, but I think they need to be made better. There's got to be a way to switch these so that they do something more effective. With the Paladin, the Blessed Warrior, I have no issue with at all. I think it might be on the weak side, but I don't have a problem with somebody who wants to use it. The Paladin spells, I remain convinced, and Stefan agreed that Spirit Guardians shouldn't be on that list. And Harness Divine Power. My opinion on this is the same as it was with the Cleric, in that I think that a Paladin should always be able to use their Channel Divinity for something fun. And if they are some kind of subclass that can't use their Channel Divinity for something fun, I'd like to see something there. I still don't think it should be a spell slot, but something else could be added. And ideally, something different than what you give the cleric. I would like to see the cleric get something maybe more healing based, and maybe I'd like to see the paladin get something more combat based, and just to make them unique from each other. With the ranger, the main thing with Deft Explorer is, as before, I just feel that these are okay if they're provided in the order they're presented. That hasn't changed. Stefan thought that roving should potentially be allowed before canny. I don't have a balance issue with that. I think roving's more powerful than canny, and I generally think that ability should get better as you go up in levels. So for me, I would think that canny, roving, tireless in that order. That's the way I would want to run it if I was a DM, and that hasn't changed. Favored foe I have concerns about, and I don't know what the solution is. We talked about a number of solutions in the video, and I do think the Rangers need something like this. And I'm good with the idea of making Hunter's Mark somehow integral to the Ranger rather than an optional spell. Because let's face it, Rangers are going to be using Hunter's Mark. So some version of Favored Foe I do think is appropriate. Now, would I allow it as written? If I was running a campaign where I wanted to test these out, yes, I would probably want to test out Favored Foe as written and see how it works out. But I'm not sure how taking away concentration from Hunter's Mark is going to affect the balance of Rangers. I definitely think it becomes too obvious of a dip for other classes. So I think there's issues with it as written. But I would like to see it play tested. I'd like to see what happens with it when you don't have to use concentration on Hunter's Mark. What it's going to be like when Rangers have their Hunter's Mark up all the time and they're not having to expend spell slots on it. I would love to see how that's going to turn out. Now, would I recommend it? Probably not as written. Fighting style options, Druidic Warrior, again, I don't have an issue with this at all. I'd like to see some more single ability builds around Rangers, and Druidic Warrior with Shillelagh gives you that option. I'd like to see how that works out in some more builds. Ranger spells, again, now Blinding Smite and Searing Smite, my main issue with those is just it's something that we're taking from another class and just throwing it on the Ranger. If we're going to enhance this spell list, I think things like Entangle enhance this spell list. I don't think we need Searing Smite and Blinding Smite on that list. That's my personal opinion. With spell versatility, again, I've talked about that already. Spellcasting focus, we talked about that. Stefan pointed out that you can use a Shillelagh potentially as your spellcasting focus, and that would open up some options, especially if you want to do something like a staff and shield option. Maybe you grab Polar Master, though Polar Master is going to interfere with your Hunter's Mark, but there's probably some neat ways you could work with that. Primal Awareness, one thing that came up in our discussion is I noted that this would be nice to see on Druids. And I still think if we're going to give this to the Ranger, I'd like to see the Druid get something similar. Just because some of these things are things I would associate with Druids first. If we're going to give it to the Ranger, I'd like to see it given to the Druid as well. Or maybe just an option for a Druid. If they give up something else, maybe they could get this. Fade Away I still like, and it was pointed out by Stefan that sometimes with Unearthed Arcana, they will phrase things in a way that are simple on purpose, just so that they're easy to understand, and then maybe the flavor text will be added later. And I would like to see that. I think this one needs some more flavor text. With the Ranger Companion options, I will mention that if somebody wanted to play a Beastmaster and they wanted to use one of these, I would allow it. Just because I think the Player's Handbook version of the Beastmaster isn't great, and this is better than that. But my issues with it remain the same. Primal Rebirth is probably too cheap. It needs something else. And we mentioned in the discussion that it probably, if you are going to allow it and give it a greater resource cost, we should also probably somehow have it so that if your creature isn't dead, you can still use this on them. Ready Companion, I'm not a huge fan of. I think it's better than what they've got in the Player's Handbook. But I would like to see, if you command your creature to attack, that it would just attack, rather than you having to re-command it every round. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's clunky. But it is better than what's in the player's handbook. So yeah, if somebody wanted to play this, I would allow it. Uh, Rogue for cunning action aim, I feel like there needs to be some kind of tweaking here. But ultimately, I wouldn't have a problem with somebody who wanted to use it. I don't think it's going to create any problems in your game. The Sorcerer spell list, I had no issues with. Spell versatility, we talked about already. The font of magic options, again, I don't have a problem allowing any of these. I think that when we talked about empowering reserves in our conversation, that really opened me up to this one being more flavorful if a player chooses to make it flavorful. Now, I think Imbuing Touch and Sorcerer's Fortitude need tweaking, but I don't think allowing them as they're written is going to cause you any problems. Meta magic options, I already liked Elemental Spell. I already didn't like Seeking Spell, and that didn't change. And not because it's unbalanced, just because it's lousy. Same thing with Unerring Spell. With the Warlock, spell versatility, again, I would allow it, but I would like to see it include Mystic Arcanum. With the Warlock spells, I've got no problem with any of these spells. We talked about Animate Dead. I still don't have an issue with Animate Dead, so that didn't change in our conversation. With the Eldritch Invocation options, again, I was already of the opinion that most of these should be allowed as they're written, and we talked quite a bit about Eldritch Armor and armor for Warlocks, and I do think there are issues there. I'm not sure that this creates any new problems, so I don't have any issues allowing it. But it is a conversation that I think is reasonable to talk about Warlocks, and do we need to do something about the fact that Warlocks are so weak defensively and then have to use their interesting abilities in order to just be up to snuff on those things, especially if you're something like Pact of the Blade, where you're expected to go into melee. Because, I mean, if you're a bard, for example, and you're going to choose a melee subclass, you're probably getting a better armor proficiency. But with a warlock, you aren't unless you go with Hexblade, which doesn't make sense and which isn't really fair to anyone who wants to play Pact of the Blade that isn't a Hexblade. Now, when it comes to Gift of the Protectors, we talked a lot about this one. I think it's an easy fix for me. I'm not convinced that it should be allowed as written. And that didn't change. And before, my thoughts were that if it was one name in the book, I wouldn't have a problem with it. It is still of the same view. I still think the same thing there. Investment of the Chainmaster. This familiar forcing a creature to make a saving throw, use your spell DC. I still think it pushes you into Sprite. One thing after our conversation is, I agree that maybe that's not a terrible thing if a player wants to try this out and is happy with using a sprite. But I would like to see some way to bring other familiars the same benefits that the sprite's getting here. Protection of the Talisman, my views haven't changed on that, nor on Rebuke of the Talisman. Pact of the Talisman again, yeah, I would absolutely allow this. I would like to see it even get maybe a little bit of a boost. That D4 on non-proficiency checks with skills, it just doesn't seem like it's going to come up a whole lot. So when it does, I would like it to be maybe a little bit more dramatic. But I don't have an issue allowing this as written. The wizard stuff, I would absolutely allow as written. And then we get into our fighting styles. And martial versatility, I think, again, this is one of those things that it doesn't need to be in the rules for me to allow it for a player. If I've got a player playing a fighter and they come across a great magic weapon and they have the wrong combat style and they ask me about switching it, I would have already allowed it without requiring the rules to tell me it was okay. But I have played with DMs who don't have those views. So, and if it becomes official, then maybe when we have those DMs that have those kinds of issues, we can work around them. Style options, my issue with blind fighting is unchanged. One thing even more so, after our conversation is I was thinking we're going to end up with a lot of combats in fogs or darknesses. The more we make that good for more characters, the more likely that's the way we're going to go. And I'm not sure that's the way we want to go. I would say that those things are interesting in combat, but I don't want them to become the norm in combat. And the fact that blind fighting kind of becomes a little bit better than archery, a little bit better than great weapon fighting. Yeah, it's not dramatically better, but if it's a little bit better than both of those, then it's better than either of those, and then it becomes kind of the default selection. I don't think it should be the default selection. So I just think it needs to be changed or removed. That hasn't changed. Interception, I think I like it more after our conversation than I did before, but I do think we need to work on that scaling somehow. The D10 plus your proficiency bonus, it's too much at first, not enough later on. We talked, and Stefan mentioned that it might be nice not to have the die at all, so that it was just a static amount. And I agree. I think that is a good change, something I hadn't thought of before. But yeah, if I was going to alter this, the die would be gone. With thrown weapon fighting, I still like it, and unarmed fighting, as mentioned in the video, I think just a little flavor tweak. Either make it straight unarmed, or change the name to something else that encapsulates what it can do. And then I would be okay with that as well. So that was my final resting place on these things. I think I already was on board with more of them than Stefan expected before we began, which was maybe good because we already talked for a long time, and I don't know how long we would have talked if we had disagreed on more things. But anyway, so that's where I ended up. Once again, I want to thank Moonsilver. Link to his Twitter and in the video description. So yeah, go check him out on Twitter. Ask him questions if you have questions about anything he has mentioned on these videos. And until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, Optimancers, and I'll see you next time.